Hi there, I'm April Levitt, and this is my case study for EDL 854. For the case study, a quick summary is Dr. Daniel Stevens. He's the principal at the middle school, and he does not have an assistant principal, and so he relies heavily on parent volunteers for the sporting events or any other events that take place in the middle school. He does have quite a few safeguards in place, so to help prevent the mishandling of funds. In this case study, it talked about Miss Lucy Bowman, and she requested that the PTA fund her daughter's cheer trip to New York. Mr. Stevens did deny her request, and stating that the funds should be used for all students versus just the one. And after having that conversation, there was one home basketball game. Mrs. Bowman happened to be there. She was collecting ticket money and giving tickets. And then some money became, seems to be missing. And then there's suspected to be missing funds. So, what do I know? I know that it's a small middle school, about 450 students. The school population is dwindling. The socioeconomic level in the area is changing. People are moving to the suburbs, but those that don't have the funds to move to the suburbs are staying in this downtown area. And so there's a shift in this school. There is strong parent involvement. The principal does have a strong connection with those parents, and then the booster, with that parent involvement, the booster club does recruit 4 parent volunteers for these events. And so there's 2 people at the concessions, there's 2 people taking tickets, taking money. So there, again, there's those safeguards that take place. The principal, Daniel Stevens, relies on parent volunteers for those athletic events. I know that Lucy Bowman would like PTA to pay for her daughter's trip. Mr. Stevens declined that request. And while I do know that while at the game, Mr. Stevens was working the tickets and having conversations, it was a very busy game. And it just happened that Mr. Dermis had cashed his paycheck. He mentioned to Mr. Stevens that he gave a $50 bill to purchase tickets at the game as he was putting the money back in his billfold. He arrived toward the end of the first quarter. We know that Mrs. Bowman was handling the sales tickets. Mrs. Bowman claimed that 10 tickets were torn. And when Mr. Stevens collected the money bag, there was a note from Mrs. Bowman claiming that the tickets were torn. There was no $50 bill in the money bag that Mr. Derman had noted he had paid with, and that $50 just happens to be the amount of 10 tickets. So the story certainly implies that Mrs. Bowman did take the money. However, there's not a lot of evidence proving that that did actually happen. What I need to know, were the torn tickets saved, or can they be located? Where are they? That would be one of my first questions. Who else was working the ticket counter? Did anyone else see those torn tickets? So really inquire before we start to point fingers. Those are the 2 big things that I would ask. Did both of the people count the proceeds that evening? Is there a signature there? What's the protocol for these torn tickets in situations like that? And was that protocol followed? And has this happened in the past? So is this something, has torn tickets happened? Is this something that's gone on before? So getting a little more background information about the situation. What's the problem? Mr. Stevens suspects that $50 was taken from the ticket sales. A plan of action with appropriate strategies for implementation. First, I would take advice from my mentor, principal, or superintendent, as well as inform them of the situation. Just get ideas from them as to how to handle a situation like this. I would seek out the second volunteer working the concession stand, get everybody that was involved in the situation, hear what happened from everyone. I would contact Mr. Dermis to see if he still had his ticket and see if it matched the ticket numbers that Mrs. Bowman noted were lost. You can kind of match that to see if there's a discrepancy there. I would have a one-on-one conversation with Mrs. Bowman as well as the second volunteer, just to inquire about what's happened, and not point fingers, but just let them know that I would want to prevent her from looking guilty. That's the biggest thing that I would want, because you don't want to sever a parent relationship. You don't want to. That would be one of the things that I would worry about. Is, you've got all of these relationships built. You want to continue that relationship. However, you do need to hold people accountable, and so having that one-on-one conversation, and just kind of pointing out, we want to ensure that nobody looks guilty. Show that you're there for support, but also must be held accountable. Ask what happened to the torn tickets. If she recalls receiving a $50 bill from Mr. Dermis, just kind of getting her story on the situation. I would also, for appropriate strategies to help prevent this in the future, would call a meeting with PTA members to review the procedures when collecting cash. I would implement, if any tickets are unsold, torn or not torn, they all have to be turned in with the money bag. If that's not already a procedure, require 2 signatures on any collected funds, and then also any ticket, I would require ticket documentation. And again, review that with all the PTA members so everyone knows that protocol and won't look guilty. To resolve the issue and promoting success for all students, I would provide, again, support and training for PTA and staff and any students that are involved. Everybody would need that to ensure that the safeguards, procedures are in place. So again, nobody looks suspicious. Funds are handled appropriately. So there's nothing in question. Funds raised should be spent to benefit all students. Being consistent with this belief would promote the trust and support of the community and the community partnerships. So we're just really being consistent, being transparent is a key to promoting that success. What was I thinking, feeling, valuing? I valued Mr. Stevens' ability to tactfully explain the PTA funds and what they're used for. I valued that the procedures that it sounded like he had some great procedures already in place. So that was a big value that I saw. I did empathize with Ms. Bowman because obviously she may be struggling finding the funds for her daughter to go, but also because she does look guilty. This really made her out to be guilty, and maybe she's not guilty. Maybe, we don't know that she is. And so I kind of empathized with her because she certainly looked guilty. I was thinking about how else the principal could help support Mrs. Bowman. Maybe there's a fundraiser or another idea to help her raise funds so that she can send her daughter, because I certainly would want to send my daughter. And if I didn't have the funds, I would be really looking for some support, if at all possible. What are some unresolved and for further investigation? How will Ms. Bowman respond to the questioning as he has that one-on-one conversation? How is she going to respond? Where did the $50 bill go? Where are the torn tickets? What are some ways Mrs. Bowman could be supported for her daughter's trip? As I reflect, provide evidence that I, as an educator, promote the academic success and personal well-being of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. So one of the big things would be building relationships and trust with students, of course, but also with parents and the parent volunteer. That's a big one. So that when you have to have those hard conversations, you have a relationship and you can hopefully build upon that. You have explicit policies and procedures. You're consistent with those, and everybody knows them. Everybody is trained, and so everybody knows how to collect cash at all events. We support the teachers, the volunteers, but we also have to hold them accountable and state those expectations, and have high expectations, and not be afraid to take action when action is needed. Thank you so much for watching. I enjoyed learning with everyone during this class, and I look forward to seeing you in another class sometime soon.